So hopefully you have your Postgres client installed, and now we're going to connect to our database and set up a users table and just get our feet wet with Beekeeper Studio. So make sure you have your Docker Compose file running, and you can verify whether you do or not by going to Docker, choosing Dashboard, and it should show up and it should be running. And if it's not, just go back to your IDE or your favorite terminal program, switch to your project for your API source code, the back end, and again type docker-compose up-d. Okay, now I already have it running. So start up Beekeeper Studio, and when you do, you'll see something like this. Now, if you come over here and try to save a connection, they're going to want you to buy a monthly service that allows you to save things online. You don't need to do that. We're just going to use it like this. So over here in New Connection, I'm going to choose Connect to Postgres. And I'm going to use localhost as my host. I'm listening on port 5432, so that's the default. And if you've changed it to a different port, you'll have to put the correct number in here. My user is Postgres, which comes right out of that docker compose.yml file. So Postgres. My password is password. And the database I want to connect to, if you look over back in your Docker Compose, in my Docker Compose, my database is called View API. So whatever you've changed it to something else, use the correct name. But back in Beekeeper, I'll put in View API. And I'll connect. There. Now, over here on the left-hand side, by default, when I connect, the information schema is expanded. I'm going to collapse that because I don't want it, okay? And even though I'm connected to the database, View API, which you can see here in the upper left, there's nothing in that. So I'm going to create a new entity, which is actually a new table. So I roll over this little plus sign, and I get that little helpful tooltip that says New Table. And I'll create a new table in the public schema, so I leave that alone. And I'll call my table not untitled table, but users, all lowercase and all plural, okay? And by default, it's going to say, well, there'll be an ID field, and I'll leave that one alone because that's perfect. That's my primary key. And then it has a created at, which is a timestamp, and it's not nullable. Now, I'll create some more fields. So I'll create a field by clicking the plus sign right here, and I'll put in email, and I'll leave that as a varchar 255. So a text field, maximum 255 characters in length. And I don't want that to be nullable. You have to have an email address. So we'll uncheck that. And I'll create another one for first name. So I'll get rid of the default name and put in first_name. Again, varchar 255, and again, not nullable. And now I'll create another one, last name. Varchar 255, not nullable. One more for password. And this one I'm going to make varchar, but I'm going to make it exactly 60 characters in length because we're not going to be storing passwords and it won't be nullable. We're going to be storing hashes of password, and 60 is the correct length for that, for the way we're going to be doing it. And we'll add one more. We have a created at field. I'm also going to add an updated at field. When was this record last updated? So updated at, and I'll leave that as a timestamp. So I'll get rid of this and put in timestamp right there. And again, not nullable. And the default I'll put as now. Okay, now the last thing I'll do is I like to have my created at and updated at fields together. So I'll drag this one by clicking on the little handle there, and I'll put it right before updated at. And now down here in the lower right-hand corner, I'll just click Create Table. And now we have a users table. Okay, now we're not doing anything with it yet, but we will be before too long. So that's all there is to that. And again, if you're not using Beekeeper Studio, just make sure you have the same structure that I have here. Otherwise, you might run into problems down the road.